What's good? It's Wood. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. We have Shavkat Rakhimov, 16 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw, taking on Zelfa Barrett, 28 wins and 1 loss. This is a battle for the vacant IBF super featherweight title. So this is a belt that was recently won by Kenichi Ogawa in a knockout victory over Azinga Fuzili, who Shavkat Rakhimov also has a knockout win against. So Ogawa knocked out Fuzili, and this was the belt that was vacated by Joseph Diaz when he failed to make weight versus Shavkat Rakhimov. Ogawa knocked out Fuzili, and then Joe Cordina unexpectedly knocked out. Now, some people thought he was going to win, but he was kind of like a stylist, a slick fighter, if you will. But he ended up knocking Ogawa out to claim the IBF 130-pound title. And then the fight was supposed to be Joe Cordina defending that belt against Shavkat Rakhimov, but Cordina got hurt in his preparation for the Rakhimov fight, so the IBF abruptly stripped him of the title. Now think about that. Like, they acted quickly. I didn't like the stripping of Cordina's title. You see certain fighters not defend their belt in like over a year. And keep in mind, Cordina won this belt earlier this year. And in other sanctioning bodies, you know, you see somebody holding onto a title, haven't defended it in a year, or in the case of like Leo Santa Cruz, who still has super WBA champion status. He hasn't participated in that division that he's holding that belt in over 3 years, and he still holds the belt. Meanwhile, the IBF immediately strips Cordina when he gets hurt, preparing for his first title defense of his newly acquired title. So I didn't love that, but as long as they make Joe Cordina the mandatory for the winner of this Rakhimov versus Barrett fight, it's like, okay, I guess I could live with that. So Rakhimov and Barrett are going to be fighting for the vacant title. Rakhimov still undefeated. He has that 1 draw against Joseph Jojo Diaz. This was a banger of a fight. They were whooping each other's behinds. And this was a fight where Rakhimov looked like he was about to start pulling away on the scorecards. Like, he was putting a beating on Joseph Diaz. I thought Joseph Diaz won maybe the first couple of rounds, and then Rakhimov, won like maybe most of rounds, we'll say 3 through 8 or 9. And then Jojo Diaz closed strong. And I think that Jojo Diaz closing strong against Rakhimov was what preserved the draw, rather than Rakhimov beating Jojo Diaz and then claiming the 130-pound title. So nobody walked away from Rakhimov versus Jojo Diaz with that IBF 130-pound belt. But it was one hell of a fight. And, Rakhimov is a very hard hitter. Like, 13 of his 16 wins come via knockout. And he's pretty tall for the division as well. I think he's like 5'8.5". And this is 130, where most guys are like, maybe 5'6". Or in the case of Zelfa Barrett, 5'7". Now, this is 5'8.5" versus 5'7". But I just saw the weigh-ins. They were about eye to eye with each other. Maybe Rakhimov was a shade taller, but it was almost negligible. But yeah, Rakhimov's biggest wins come against Robinson Castellanos, who at one point stopped Yorki's Gamboa. And then there was the Rakhimov win over Azinga Fuzili, and then he fought to a draw with Jojo Diaz. So those are probably his 3 best accomplishments in the ring. And then he's had 1 fight since that February 2021 fight against Diaz, and that was against Sardor Muzaffarov, and that was in December of 2021. So it's almost been a year since Rakhimov's been in the ring, and he's going to be taking on Zelfa Barrett, a very impressive, pretty slick, technical boxer. Like, this guy is really good at, managing range. He's a good defensive fighter. He pretty much is able to break people off with combinations and a lot of good jabbing and so forth, moving around the ring well, and just showcasing that ring generalship, as they say. And you could see this highlighted when Zelfa Barrett beat Kiko Martinez, who we just saw have a very strong fight. Knockout win over Jordan Gill, and a couple fights before that, knocked out Kid Galahad. Between those 2 fights, the Galahad fight and the Jordan Gill fight, yes, Kiko Martinez got stopped by Josh Warrington, who reclaimed the IBF 126-pound title, and Kiko Martinez is probably a lot more suited for the 126-pound division rather than 130. But, a lot of people thought that Zelfa Barrett lost to Kiko Martinez. I didn't. I thought that it was kind of frustrating in the way that he was, just managing range and keeping this boxing match from turning into a fight, which is what Kiko Martinez often tries to make it. He's looking to land bombs, and Kiko Martinez was giving up so much height against Barrett that, Barrett was, pretty wise to keep Kiko Martinez on the outside, because Martinez's only chance of winning would be to collapse the pocket and to be able to drop bombs. Barrett did a pretty good job at, keeping that from happening and ended up winning on the scorecards. Although, again, the public is somewhat split on this one. Zelfa Barrett ended up winning that one via unanimous decision. And Barrett's fought 3 times since. He's fought against Vioriel Simeon, who he stopped in the 4th round of an 8-rounder, I believe, and then against Bruno Tarimo and Farouk Kurbanov. And both of those fights ended up being 12-round unanimous decision wins for Zelfa Barrett. So what do I expect between Shavkat Rakhimov, the southpaw, by the way, versus Zelfa Barrett? Look, we know that Zelfa Barrett is a good, sweet scientist in the ring. And Kiko Martinez, again, is a 126-pounder who was fighting at 130. So the question with Zelfa Barrett is, how good of a sweet scientist is he? How good is he defensively? And against somebody who's as, we'll say, deterministic, like in demanding that this fight become a firefight in the way that Rakhimov does, can Zelfa Barrett keep this a boxing match rather than a fight? And if this ends up devolving into a fight, can Zelfa Barrett hang with the hard-hitting Rakhimov? And Zelfa Barrett, by the way, does have 1 loss on his record. It was to Ronnie Clark back in February of 2018. But that was a very close majority decision win for Ronnie Clark. A disputed win, if you will. But Rakhimov, I feel, is more proven, being that we've seen him against better 130-pounders. And for Zelfa Barrett to win this one, I think he'll have to have his best all-around performance to date. That is possible. But I feel like the higher likelihood is that Shavkat Rakhimov wins this one. Look, I think Zelfa Barrett is a tough fighter. I think that slick or sweet science style fighters are sometimes mistaken for not being tough. Just because you fight in a defensively responsible way where you're showing that craft doesn't mean that you don't have guts and that you can't survive in a fight where, you're getting hit and where you're having to dig really deeply. I think Zelfa Barrett very well might have that. I just think that if this fight does become more of a fight than a boxing match, it just tends to favor the harder hitting Shavkat Rakhimov. So I think that what is very possible is that the optics here, it might look like Barrett is doing a little bit of running, where if he's not able to control the fight with his boxing acumen, and Shavkat Rakhimov is able to kind of throw the punches that he wants to throw, you might have a case where Zelfa Barrett looks like he's, like on in the CompuBox, in the actual punch stats, that he is landing more punches, and that people who prefer the sweet science style of the boxing craft might see Zelfa Barrett winning majority of the rounds. But if it looks like he's somewhat running or reluctant to engage the come forward style of Shavkat Rakhimov, I think Rakhimov might get the favorable judging here, to where if it's disputed, I think that we might end up seeing Shavkat Rakhimov win via like split decision or something like that. Something very close. 7 rounds to 5, 8 to 4, and then maybe one judge having it a draw or in favor of Zelfa Barrett. I'm actually going to go Shavkat Rakhimov finally securing his share of the 130-pound title in a majority decision win or a split decision win over Zelfa Barrett. Look, Shavkat Rakhimov has now found himself in a couple very close fights, most notably and most recently against Jojo Diaz. And Zelfa Barrett has been looking really good. Like, he's been fighting a lot of fights where he's winning like the vast majority of the rounds. Like, think Caleb Plant before the fight against Canelo Alvarez, where Plant was either, winning far and away on the scorecards, wide margins, if not stopping his opponent. By the way, I can't wait for Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. I'm about to do a preview, like an early thoughts video on that one. But yeah, I think that Zelfa Barrett has shown that when he's fighting against guys that are outmatched, he can win by a wide margin or stop them. But in the case of Shavkat Rakhimov, I feel like he's resilient enough. He has been in there against, grade A or near grade A level boxers, or at least fighters in the case of Jojo Diaz, and I think he's going to edge this one against Zelfa Barrett. But yeah, I wanted to do a video on this one. I know it's coming late, but I'm really excited about Rakhimov versus Zelfa Barrett. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you see winning this one and how? And by the way, if Zelfa Barrett does pull this off against Shavkat Rakhimov, you might have a budding star in the making. He does have a good amount of charisma. He's got a good story. And again, when he's outmatching his opponents, he looks pretty damn good in there. Like with his boxing ability, like you could tell that he's a very intelligent boxer. Not to mention he's from Manchester, England. So, obviously they've got a huge fan base in the UK, and Manchester's, one of the most notable cities in England. So yeah, Zelfa Barrett, if he pulls this one off, you might have your next big name in boxing. But yeah, let me know what you think about this fight in the comments. Again, I'm going Shavkat Rakhimov via very close majority decision win or split decision win. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.